Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Chelsea Drda. Dr. Chelsea Drda is dedicated to helping women in health and wellness fields simplify their business and find time for joyful living. She is an expert in business strategy, social media management, and teaching others how to create engaging video content. Chelsea is a doctor of chiropractic by trade and is driven to help healthcare providers and wellness professionals take care of themselves so they can take better care of their patients and clients. She believes every woman deserves to thrive. All right, welcome to the podcast, Chelsea.
Thank you so much. It's glad to be here.
Yes. So excited to have a fellow podcaster on here. So I know you have a podcast too. We'll talk about that. But before we do, let's talk about you, where you started out, how you got to be doing what you're doing now.
So I have been on a journey, and I think that's the longer I spend time connecting with people, the more I find that's true for most of us. And I started out as a child thinking, oh, I really want to help people. What's the best way I can do that? Surely I have to be a doctor. And I realized shortly thereafter that I'm not interested in surgery because I don't do blood. I went to the operating room with my mom, who's a nurse, and I said, this is not for me. Okay, let me explore other avenues. And I happened to have an opportunity to spend time with a chiropractor who's actually my uncle. And he said, Chelsea, the body heals itself. We just have to help it get out of its own way. We have to remove the interference. And that completely blew my mind. I said, oh my gosh, that should be the foundation of our healthcare system. Why are we not looking at things proactively instead of reactively? So I went on this journey of becoming a chiropractor and practicing for 6 years. And I have had the most incredible experience with it. I absolutely love practicing. But along the way, I started looking at what causes people to not make changes. Why are we still reactive? I mean, it's not just our healthcare system, it's who we are as individuals as well. So I looked at that and I said, okay, why are people so stressed that they can't even make small changes? And why is that the reason that we're not being able to make these necessary changes? For example, I had a patient and she was over 300 pounds. She had had 19 miscarriages and she was going through fertility treatments and spending tens of thousands of dollars. And we talked about some diet modifications that she could make in order to help her lose some weight because her doctor had said, we're not doing any more fertility treatments until you lose some weight. And it broke my heart because she made some changes in that first week and she lost 8 pounds. And then she came back and said, I just can't do it. It's too hard. So she saw a glimpse of what change was possible, but it was still overwhelming for her. So that's when I started looking at burnout and really exploring how have we gotten to this point of stress. And I've learned so much along the way that women in particular, men do it too, but especially women in the health and wellness field, because we're givers already, and especially women with children or with aging parents or both, tend to overextend ourselves and push ourselves to the point of exhaustion and make ourselves the last priority on the list. And that's where we get to this point of, I just can't handle one more thing. So I am personally fascinated with it. I love helping other healthcare providers. And earlier this year, I stepped into that full time, and it has opened so many doors for joy in my life, including completely leaving a 9 to 5, being able to live remotely and travel. And I am just thriving in it myself. So I am super jazzed and exploring whole new avenues of joy myself this year.
Mm-hmm. That is wonderful. So when you work with these women, what are you working on? How are you changing their life?
Yeah, simplicity and self-care are the keys to success. So I primarily work with them in two different ways. The first one is business strategy, saying, okay, how can you simplify your practice? And how can you also simplify your life? And how can we bring those together so that you have more time, energy, freedom to do the things that you love to do? And that also involves some strategic schedule planning. It also involves rearranging your priorities and creating systems to put in place so that you're not feeling like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that something sticks. The other avenue is through a little bit of life coaching to look at, why are you not the first priority in your life? Is it because you feel like you've been told your entire life that you're not important? Is it because you have some issues with self-esteem? Is it because you've been through an abusive relationship? Is it because you just are so engrossed in serving others, which is beautiful, that you forget to serve yourself along the way? There are so many different ways we look at that. And because I've had my own health journey as part of this, I can speak to what it takes to make revolutionary life changes, especially regarding our diet. So I do a lot of coaching around that as well. And in addition, of course, I always do social media management for my clients if that's something they need, because it's one more thing that they can take off of their plate.
Beautiful. So do you want to talk some about your journey that brought you here?
Sure. So I grew up not overweight, overweight, but not obese. And I say that because it's much more difficult to be a child that's 100 pounds overweight. But I was the child that was 40 to 50 pounds overweight. And I didn't have a lot of energy. I had asthma, so I wasn't super engaged in sports, had chronic allergies, just really kind of miserable. And thankfully, I come from a nurturing environment and I was able to still pursue joy in the middle of that. But it definitely left a mark on my self-esteem. It definitely left a mark on my body. I mean, by the time I was 21, I was 195 pounds. And even though I'm a tall person and I carried it a little better on my frame than somebody who's 5 feet, it was still really difficult. I was having trouble sleeping. I was having trouble with anxiety, a lot of other problems, including their embarrassing gas. Nobody talks about that, but when you're overweight, you're worried about gas all the time. You're worried about your breath all the time. And so as a product of that, I finally said, I need to make some changes. I was desperate. I was miserable. I made myself so sick that I had a sinus infection. It was hard to go to school. And I said, I need to change something. So I started looking at my diet, and I had been told by wise people before that a lot of people in today's world cannot tolerate dairy products. So I started taking them gradually out of my life. And just by doing that and exercising, I lost 40 pounds. And then over the process of the next couple of years, doing some elimination diets, working with listening to my body and what it had to say, I discovered a few other sensitivities, including gluten. So I've cut that out of my life as well. Again, doing the same things I had already been doing to maintain my health. All of a sudden, now I could easily lose 20 pounds where I've been exercising, I've been eating okay, nothing's changing. And the biggest thing I discovered along the way with that is that a lot of our sugar cravings come from gut disruption. Was a major sugar head before. I was always craving sugar. I was always snacking. That was always what I was looking for. And now I know it's because my body was begging for nutrients. It was begging for nutrition. It was begging for quick resources for my brain because my gut was so inflamed. I wasn't processing any of the nutrients I was taking in properly. So I was just needing those quick sources of energy just to keep moving through my day. So thankfully, I've been able to get past that. I'm not a sugarhead anymore. I still have a treat here and there, but it's not a must have right now in this moment or I'm going to die requirement. And I'm sure somebody else listening feels the same way. So I hope that's hope and light for you, that there is a way out of that tunnel. And that makes a big difference in the weight loss and health transformation path as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So, you were talking about people who are givers in these basically fields where we care for people. And it is really common to find people who they just want to give, and they do forget about themselves. So, what strategies or tools do you give these women to help them to start putting themselves first again?
Yeah. The first one is just owning the idea that you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. There's a reason they say it to us on the airplane, but you cannot give to anyone else in the capacity that you want to unless you give to yourself first. And so somebody who's pretty good about taking care of themselves, that should sound like a no-brainer. But to somebody who is a true deep giver, especially those of you who are familiar with the Enneagram, the twos out there, it is very hard to embrace the, oh, I have to take care of me. Right. So that doesn't just mean that I have to eat 3 meals a day, which a lot of givers don't, but I also have to get enough sleep. I also have to drink enough water. I also have to move my body. I mean, these non-negotiables that we know we're supposed to do for ourselves, but you'd be amazed even how many healthcare providers are unable to do because we have these limiting mindsets or because our priorities are not quite in alignment with what we want in the world. So that's always the first one. The second one is taking them through this exercise, which I actually offer as a freebie on my website for any new subscribers. And it's looking at your priorities. So taking a look at, what am I doing every day? What are all the things that I do every day? And you're a superhero. You do so many things. We do so many more things today than our ancestors ever did because the world is at our fingertips, which is amazing. But looking at those things and saying, okay, but which of these things actually have to be done by me specifically? Which of these things can actually be done by someone else in my life, often whom are already willing to do them? So especially those with teenagers, with older children, they can help you out in the house. And if you raise them a certain way, or if you just give them a little bit of encouragement, they are happy to do that. There's an amazing book called The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong, and she talks a lot about how women, especially highly educated professional women, have a tendency to take on too much. And we actually end up demasculinizing our husbands, our partners, our boyfriends, whoever else is in our life, because we feel like we have to do it all and we don't know how to ask for help and accept help when it's offered. So highly recommended read for those of you out there who are struggling with your partner and asking for help. Sometimes it's not because they're unwilling. Sometimes it's because we've pushed them away and we have to welcome them back into the helping space. So that's a big one. And then also looking at the things in your life that are completely unnecessary, things that we've told ourselves we have to do that really have no place in our lives. And for depending on who you are, that could be social media. It could be reading the newspaper. It could be watching the news or binging on Netflix or spending time cooking, baking something from scratch for the PTA luncheon when, you really could just buy cupcakes. It's different for everybody. But looking at what really isn't serving me and what is unnecessary and what can I let go of so that I get the things that I really want in life. Because that's the real issue at the end of the day. Most of us don't take any time to really think about what we want. what we truly desire and what we need. And because of that, we have no idea how to get it. Am I
Makes
right?
total sense.
Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
So exploring what you really want can open so many doors, because now you're saying, wait a second, I don't really want a Hershey's bar. I want to fit into these size 12 jeans. Or I don't really want to watch this episode on Netflix. I'd really love to get outside and go for a walk. And once we have those desires and those priorities established, it's so much easier to access them. So I am a huge, huge advocate for getting more sleep. And that is one of the first things I work on with my clients, because again, we all know that you're supposed to get at least 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep every night, but there's a reason that most American adults do not. And it's because when we get stressed, sleep is usually the first thing we sacrifice after exercise. So, okay, how can you find more time for better quality and longer sleep? And that is huge, because once you're sleeping more, you have more energy and you can start doing the things that feel so much more difficult. Like for a lot of women, exercise, especially high intensity exercise, feels chronically out of reach because it just sounds exhausting. Someone who's well rested is excited. They're ready to move. They're excited to move. They're jazzed up about moving, because that's when our bodies feel good. And the more you exercise, the more energy you have. So it's a positive feedback cycle. So that is something that is really beautiful and is such a small change we can make. But creating space for that allows us to go down that path and create new possibilities.
Yeah, and as you were talking about that, and I was even thinking of the patient you talked about earlier, who, she lost the weight, but she just couldn't. It was too hard. A lot of times with our exercise, it can be hard to go it alone or do it alone.
Yes.
So like I do CrossFit, which is considered pretty hard workout, and I get up early in the morning at 6 a.m. and do this. And but one of the things that really helps is I know when I get there, my friends are going to be there who are supporting me, and we're all doing this together and we're having fun. So I think anything you do, whether it be changing your diet or exercising or any life change, if you can find at least one friend or someone else that keeps you accountable and makes it fun for you, it makes a big difference.
Yes. I'm so glad you mentioned fun, because I think that's something that most adults have lost. We have lost the ability to connect with fun outside of drinking. And that's a whole other issue in itself. But we associate fun with drinking because it's the only time most adults feel like they can settle down and let go and stop thinking about their to-do lists long enough to be present in the moment. And there's a lot to say about that. We should be able to have fun at so many different points in our day. And that, again, decreasing that overwhelm, being able to be present, being able to seek joy is such a huge part of that. And that's why the work I do is so exciting to me, because I feel joyful every day. And I want everyone else to feel joyful and having fun and laughing and smiling and being excited about life.
Mm-hmm. So if you're working with a healthcare provider and you're helping them with business strategy, what's one or two things that you almost always tell them? It's like, okay, if you just do this one thing, it's really going to help the flow or help you have more time.
Yeah, so that actually is very different depending on the setting that they're in. So I work with all kinds of providers, from employees in a hospital all the way to sole practitioners owning their own office, to practitioners who own multiple different offices within the same business entity. So it can differ, But marketing is my wheelhouse. And that's usually, so marketing is a big piece of it because it's something that they don't usually know how to do intuitively. So it's somewhere where a lot of professionals end up wasting so much time. They end up wasting so many hours trying to figure it out, trying to play the game, trying to figure out the algorithm. And so if I can help them with that, it's one easy thing we can take off of their plate. But other than that, it comes back to that same life simplicity exercise. We apply that exercise to their business as well. And that helps because then they're realizing, oh, okay, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, which really should be done by my associate. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, which really should be done by my supervisor. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, which no one asked me to do. And I'm not even getting paid for in the hospital. Why am I even doing this to begin with? So having that priorities exercise is so important because it opens a lot of doors for where we're wasting time, where we're wasting energy, and where we're not even being rewarded for the things that we're doing.
Wonderful. Now, let's say there's a lot of stress at work. Are you worried about things? That can add a lot to someone's physical and emotional well-being. So how do you help people when they're just getting that really highly stressed position?
Yeah, that's massive, especially in the wake of the events of 2020. I mean, the National Institute of Health will tell you 90% of disease or more comes directly from our stress level. Everything else in our life matters, but how we are handling our stress and the stressors we're exposed to has the greatest impact on whether or not we get sick. Now, whether that's sick with the flu or sick with cancer. So that is a massive, massive question. And it depends on the setting that you're in, but let's assume someone's an employee, they have very little control over their environment. There are some things you can do in terms of initiating programs to build rapport, to build resolve, to build resilience among the employees. Sometimes you have the opportunity to do that. Sometimes it's as simple as bringing in coffee for everybody once a week. And sometimes there's absolutely nothing you can do about the level of stress at work itself. And we look more back at what you can do about your stress within yourself. So self-care is such a massive piece of that. So again, sleep is number one. We absolutely have to get more sleep because if you're tired, guess what? Everything is going to seem more stressful. It's going to make you more anxious. You're going to be more reactive about it than if you're well rested and calm and able to handle it. There's actually even research suggesting that if we don't get enough sleep, not only is our own vocal tone different, meaning that we think we sound calm, but actually we sound aggressive or anxious, but we also interpret the tone of others incorrectly. So all of a sudden you're having a conversation with someone and they think you're being really aggressive and you think that they're being really anxious and rude. And the reality is neither of you had that intention, but the vocal tone in the conversation changes the direction of how the conversation goes. So that's between employees, that's between employee and patient. There's so many different dynamics that can impact. Not to mention how it impacts our own relationships with the people in our life. You could take that same scenario and somebody who is already stressed and tired takes something that their spouse says the wrong way or thinks that their child has an attitude. And because teenagers are the way they are, if you come at them with bad energy, they're going to give it back to you 10 times over. So it impacts so many different areas of our lives. Now, take that same person, she's stressed, she's tired, she's going to reach for a food that is lower quality, higher calorie, higher sugar, higher fat, and often something that comes from a package and often something that comes from a fast food restaurant. So it means that same person is going to be quicker to grab some McDonald's or grab like a snack cake or have 2 more donuts at the lunch and social, instead of saying, no, that's right. My priorities are to work towards this new health goal. I want to feel better. I don't want to be tired all the time. I'm committed to eating more fruits and vegetables, but you have to be out of that state of overwhelm to start making those choices. So somebody who's well rested has an easier time saying, no, I'm not desperate for quick energy. I'm going to make a better, healthier choice. That same person is planning well. So she's planning her meals several days ahead of time. She's done meal prep. She has enough food in her fridge ready to go for her lunches for the next 3 days. There's not even a question. Hey, Susie, we're going out for Wendy's. No, don't worry. I already brought my food. I'm really excited to eat it. I've already made this wonderful, nourishing meal for myself. That is a massive difference. So there are so many ways that we can apply self-care to our lives that help with the stressors that are outside of our control. Because now Susie's feeling better about herself. She's lost a little bit of weight. She has more energy. So the next time she enters a conflict at work, instead of just letting someone walk all over her, she's going to say, hey, wait a second. I know that you're really stressed and I can appreciate that, but this is not my job. This is not my responsibility. And I'd be happy to talk with our supervisor about how we can find resolution, instead of just saying, okay, Jane, that's fine. I have too many cases already, but I'll take on 6 more.
Yeah. So actually boundaries.
Boundaries. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about boundaries. Yeah. And that's so important in everywhere, every part of our lives. So
massive.
Yeah.
But it takes a certain level of self-esteem and self-worth and self-value to care enough to say it's okay to set healthy boundaries instead of putting up an aggressive wall or letting people walk all over you.
Exactly. Yeah. And people who are giving, that happens to them often because they're so giving that people sometimes take advantage of that. So
Absolutely, 100%.
So are there some things that you do personally? Like, do you have a morning routine or something that you do to put those things into your life?
So I'm laughing because I'm a huge believer in a morning routine, but I will add the disclaimer. I have the luxury of having freedom, and that includes not being married and not having kids. So my life looks a little different because my responsibilities are different. So no, at the moment, I don't have a morning routine, but it is something that a lot of my clients find extremely beneficial because they know that their day is packed. They know that their schedule is packed. They have to answer to so many people. So having that morning routine for self-centering is absolutely essential for their well-being. So I have dabbled in them in the past, and I've let some go and take some on. And right now I'm traveling, so it's completely gone out the window. But my ideal morning is that I spend time reading the Bible, drinking some tea, doing a meditation exercise, because that is the best way to self-regulate your brain and change your brain patterning, as well as changing your breathing patterning. I used to be a morning exercise person, and I've since discovered that I don't do my best exercise in the morning. So I have a morning routine that's a little more passive. It's a little more relaxed. And then around mid-afternoon, around the time where I start getting distracted, I start finding myself on social media, I get a little bit more off track. That's when I'll take a break and do some exercise, get outside, again, do some breathing exercises and recenter so that I can continue to be creative and keep moving with my day. And for those of you who have a set schedule, don't have the opportunity to just say at 2:00, okay, well, I'm just going to go away and do whatever I want for an hour, because I know that's not everybody. There is something that I really recommend that you can do anytime, anywhere, regardless of the situation you're in. And that's something I like to call an exercise snack. Now, that doesn't mean that you're eating a protein bar or taking some pre-workout. What it actually means is you take 2 minutes, or depending on the setting you're in, it might even be 30 seconds, and do some really gentle exercise just something that you can incorporate wherever you are. Because even if you're standing at a bank counter, or you're standing at the nurse's station, or you're somewhere at your desk, you can take 2 minutes or even that 30 seconds and do 10 squats. You can do 10 push-ups against a wall. You can do 10 bicep curls, and you might think, oh, well, I don't have any weights, it doesn't do anything. But if you're concentrating on the motion and really activating your muscles, you can get an incredible workout just by using your muscles alone and focusing on that contraction. Now, of course, it's not as good as lifting heavy weights at the gym, but if it's all you have time for, it's still better than doing nothing. And it has the added benefit that it's increasing your circulation, which means your lymphatic system is getting activated. It's dumping toxins that you've been holding on to in your tissues by standing or sitting still all day. It's activating pathways in your brain that are associated with memory and learning. It's activating your heart, which is always a good thing, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, we live incredible lives. We have so many resources at our fingertips, but for thousands of years, until about 1940, 1950, people spent most of their days moving. So in a very short period of time, less than a full generation, we've gone from completely mobile humans to completely sedentary humans. And that has a massive impact on our health. And that also is one of the reasons that we experience stress so deeply, because our brains are wired for movement. Our brains are wired for feedback and experiences. And if all of our experiences are mental, emotional, instead of physical, our brains get confused. So being able to incorporate even just a small amount of exercise, especially when you're feeling sluggish, when you're feeling sleepy, when you're feeling stressed, can activate your brain, activate your body, and really help you come back to yourself in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, I find that to be so true. So I know even when, when I'm seeing patients on those days, whenever I have a break, I would do squats. It sounds really funny, but
It's great.
also, if you're imagining yourself, like I would do squats, but I would imagine myself doing a squat and then jumping up onto a building like Wonder Woman, In other words,
Yes.
I would imagine that I was doing a heavier exercise than I really was, because I think our brains and our minds are really, really powerful, and we can get a lot more out of a simple exercise just by visualizing doing a heavier exercise.
100%. And we're more likely to be injured if we're doing that heavy exercise with a heavy weight and we're pretending like we're not lifting a heavy weight, right? If you're distracted and you're not present, you are much more likely to be injured. I've seen so many people have a disc herniation because they weren't focused on the exercise that they were doing. That concentration, that mental connection is absolutely paramount. So it should exactly work the opposite way, like you just described, where you're preparing for a massive exercise, even if you're not doing it.
Exactly. So when you work with women, how do you find your clients? Do you have a website, or I know you have a podcast? Why don't you talk about your podcast and your website and how people can work with you?
Yeah, thank you. So a lot of people actually find me through my social media account. It started as a hobby. When I first started looking at women's stressors, especially for moms, I started an Instagram account called Happy Motivation for Women. And I started making these videos empowering women to seize their self-care. And along the way, I have pivoted it somewhat to include business strategy, but it all comes back to how to create simplicity in your life around business strategy and self-care. So that is somewhere where a lot of my people find me, because I have a really engaged audience there. I don't have 100,000 followers, but the people who are on my page are so loyal, and we have a real connection. I've built a real community there. So it's really beautiful because it allows me to still connect with my audience. And I love that so much. Also, I work with an organization called the Women Project. I'm vice president of membership for this amazing women's networking organization. So I have found so many incredible clients directly through that. I'm a huge fan, huge advocate, because we're focused on empowered women making meaningful connections. Again, not just saying, not that there's anything wrong with BNI groups. I totally respect them. I think they're wonderful. But I've been to so many networking events where you just get out there and put yourself out there and you get somebody's business card and you never see them again. And that is emotionally and mentally exhausting for me personally. So I'm all about spending energy where it is actually resourceful. So that has been such a huge blessing in my life. And then, of course, my podcast. So I'm really blessed. I share a podcast with an incredible practitioner. She's a pelvic floor physical therapist named Dr. J. Michelle Martin, Joanne Michelle, for those of you who know her personally. And she is so wonderful, huge advocate for women's pelvic health in particular. She helps women stop peeing their pants. So I really appreciate her. And we have a podcast called Fueling Her, A Women's Guide to Wellness. And we have so much fun interviewing all of these experts in the field of health and wellness about how we can build better lives. So I do find clients through there as well. But most of my clients actually come from referrals from people I'm already working with, which I am so thankful for, because it has really allowed me to grow a business of people I know are my people. And I think that's something that we all kind of wish for. You know, as healthcare providers, we want to serve everybody. And it's so helpful when we can serve everybody, but at the same time, there are still things you can do that allow you to connect with people and bring joy into their lives, even while acknowledging the fact that people in pain can be really nasty. And the beautiful thing about that is if you're able to take them out of pain, you get to see who they truly are. So that is a beautiful thing in itself. So that's a long-winded way to say that I am very blessed, and that I get a lot of referrals from my social media, from my podcast, from the Women Project, and from referrals. So if you're listening to this and you work with any kind of professional ever, I would strongly encourage you to leave them a review on Google, or if it's a podcast, on Apple Podcasts. And the reason is because any of us who work in the service industry depend on reviews from people like you. So I pride myself, I am a Google reviewer as well. And that's something I do because I know how much it matters to other business owners. So just a little food for thought.
All right. Thank you. Because we don't always think about doing that. You know, we go in, we get great service, but we don't think, oh, you know, it'd be really helpful for them if I said thank you with a review.
Right. A review is a better gift than a present. I have had patients give me presents over the years, and I'm so thankful. It was always so thoughtful and kind, but a review goes far and above what a present can do, because it helps someone else find your care or your service.
Yeah, wonderful. So just a personal question, what gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life?
Oh, yeah, it's my work. My work in helping women is just so blissful for me. And I know that sounds really funny. I never thought I would say that, even when I was a provider, because I love so many things. I'm blessed that I really love life and appreciate the little things. But I really love watching women come alive again, find joy again, realize the things that they can let go of, and watch this moment happen where they just put all the extra down. That is so massive. And I am so thankful, because it means that not only are we developing a friendship that will last a lifetime, but also I get to see the impact it has on every other area of their life, and how they start to come alive in their relationship, how they start to come alive in working with their kids, how they start to come alive in their career and start hitting milestones that they've been fighting for ages. And now all of a sudden they get the promotion they're looking for and things like that. So it's really, really beautiful. And I'm so thankful that I get to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for all your wisdom. And it's just been wonderful in your stories.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And everybody go follow Dr. Kimberley on all her platforms, because that's another way you could say thank you. Make sure to follow and subscribe and like her content.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that plug. And I have one last question before we complete. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Oh, that's a good one. Find a way to pause and appreciate the little things. In the Bible, it tells us that everything was created with intention and that everything was created perfectly. And I really think we all need to view the world through an artist's eyes. Like, the world around us is a classical masterpiece, and really appreciate the fine details that are there. Can you look at the leaves on the trees changing color? Or if you're like me and you live in Florida and the seasons don't change, can you appreciate the wind on the sand creating patterns, or the sound of the crash of the waves, or just the smile on your child's face, or even just the fact that you get to wake up and have another beautiful day, that every day is full of new potential, even if yesterday was absolutely trash. Even if yesterday was the worst day of your life, you got to go to sleep and there was a reset. And even if the same conditions are there today, you get to choose how you show up. So I tell my patients, my people, my clients, you have a remote in your hand that changes your emotions, and you can switch it on or off. You would never hand that to somebody else. So you have to take that control back yourself and remember that you have it. So any situation that you're in, any environment that you're in, you get to choose how you respond. And choosing a joyful response is part of that. You have the opportunity, the privilege, and the gift to choose joy every day, to choose to continue to seek joy, and to see the best in the world around you. And that alone can shift so many things in your life and create a beautiful environment for you to thrive.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And
Thank
we'll talk
you.
to you again soon.